Oh my God.
This is our new golf music. The production staff asked us to the production crew asked us to turn off the football music. So
This is what I would do. When my dad or grandpa growing up would watch golf on Sundays, this is what I would nap to.
Yep. That's exactly what it is. It's the golf NBC golf coverage. Is that bad?
It's just boring a little. But I guess
I'll let the production crew figure if that's better than our football intro. So we'll have to see. Hey, welcome to March 10th. The show is live, even though you wouldn't know about the music. Woo! Stevie B!
We are here. Stephen Bryan, the Dean of GovSales University. Always a pleasure, Jack. And Dre, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, Dre.
Who's that? Close up there. That was a nice action.
Dre, what? Who's that?
I didn't get the invite the last couple weeks. What do you mean?
I think it's been weeks. Where you been? What have you been doing out there, out in the world, like leaving us hanging?
It's been nice. I've just been enjoying my Wednesday afternoons.
You got your pay. It'll be reflected in your pay. We're doing your pay for not being here. So a couple of weeks.
Negative from a zero is still zero.
We're gonna triple your bonus. So we're all back. We are back. And actually today we're actually going to talk about the government. So every once in a while we go off the rails. Today we're really blessed to have Robert Shea here. He'll be here in just a little bit. Used to work at OMB and now works at Grant Thornton. So we're going to talk about the government sales process, the government budgeting process, how you win big federal things. And so that'll be phenomenal. But beforehand, there's a couple other things going on. So before I do it, I want to make sure, listen, I want to promote the GovSales Hall of Fame. I know we do that at the end, but I want to pop in earlier. Listen, if you know somebody that sells to the government, works for the government, there's the GovSales Hall of Fame. There's 3 categories if you want to nominate somebody totally for free. Again, the goal is to honor, acknowledge folks that are in kind of the government improvement, government sales world. So there's government. So if somebody works in government sales, we're going to do a couple awards there, a couple nominations. Folks that help individuals sell to the government. So we have sales support. There's nominations there we're taking. And then Lifetime Achievement Award. So if you know somebody that's been working in the government sales, government procurement space for a long period of time, whether they're on the government side or the vendor side, you can go to the GovSales Hall of Fame, nominate them, and we're taking nominations to the end of the month. So it's the last couple weeks here to get your favorite folks in. It's a great way to listen, totally for free. You can tell somebody, listen, I nominated you. You can send them the nomination form. So it'll be cool. They're going to get a huge trophy. We'll do some press release behind it. They'll get to put on we got a badge and all they can put on their email string, 2021 GovSales Hall of Fame nominee. And so that'll be awesome. So don't miss that opportunity. Oh, you see the URL below. GovSales Hall of Fame. Don't miss the opportunity. It's a great way to acknowledge coworkers, somebody you know and love, and make them feel important. So I know
I seen this trophy. It's like the size of the Stanley Cup. This thing is enormous. So whoever wins, you're going to have to take it out and celebrate just like you do when you go out and everyone, drinks out of it, passes it around.
We were just trying to match your Hershey bar you sent to people on the.
Oh, that was great. Yeah. 50. I think it was a 5-pound Hershey bar, but the thing was enormous. Oh, speaking of that, what's that?
The white chocolate ones with the cookies and cream. You think they make a 5-pound one of those?
We'll go to the internet. I'm sure
Hershey.com would be a good source.
I didn't know if you knew the answer. Sorry.
The internet. I'm going to check while you do it. Go ahead, Steve. What were you going to prop? Cookies and cream.
I was going to say on Monday this week, a new member to my family.
Whoa! Are you bringing them in?
Ooh.
Not bringing it in right. Bringing her in right now. So Dre, I'm not the only one, and Jack, not the only one without a dog anymore. So now I have one, and got a little puppy. It's a little dachshund. Right now she's a little dachshund. Resting with the mom, but I know everybody loves Mia. So we're going to be bringing in Evie. That's the new dog's name to the GovCast. So look forward to seeing
the dog. Where's the dog right now? You just hyped the dog and we can't see her.
Yeah, she's resting with her mom. It was a late night last night, barking every hour on the hour. She's a little separation inside. Yeah, so I heard it's only for 2 weeks, so hopefully this kind of goes away.
Dre, I got great news. Giant Hershey's cookies and cream bar available via the internet.
I probably won't get it, but I love white chocolate.
Snap a piece off. You're all golden. So all good. See all the little
things. I know what to get her for a wedding gift. Anybody that's going to Dre's wedding?
Oh, speaking of wedding, go ahead, Dre. Connect some dots. Go ahead. What are you doing?
No, well, we keep talking about me and this wedding. We got it, let's pause it, but we can talk just for 1 second. Well, Friday is 1 year out from our wedding date.
Woo!
And that's 1 year since we went home to work from home for the pandemic. So literally, we have been in quarantine for 1 year.
Yep. March 12th, 2020 is when we went work from home, right? And we were corporately, we were never work from home. Everybody get your rear end to the office. We're all like, everyone go home, get out of here, don't get sick. And
yeah.
So,
how long did you go, if you had to say, like back then, I remember.
I see you, Harrison. I see you. Where is Lola? I gotta get her. End of the show, Steve. End of the show. Cue up your dog. I'm going to cue my dog up.
When this happened last year, I remember thinking, I was like, what? This is going to be a month. Like, this is a couple weeks. We're good. No big deal. A year later.
It's behind the scenes. It's a real interesting when that was happening because so many things look easy. 2020 hindsight. That was a really debate. Like folks were like, when will we go home? How do we go home? Are we going to go home? And then it's like, we did, for a while, it's like, as soon as you send people home, like after 2 weeks, they're like, all I want to do is go see people again. You know what I mean? Like you look like everyone's like, can we go work from home? And it seemed like a great benefit at the time. It's like, oh, I'd love to work from home, blah, blah, blah. And then about 2 months in, people were like, can I just go see anybody? Could we come to the office? You know what I mean? And so it's so crazy how it's always the grass always looks greener over there until you get it. So, but
now keep us from home forever.
Amen. I would say this. I know this is very unpopular. I do this on LinkedIn, but like there are some severe blessings from COVID. And one of them is definitely folks being able to create really the work and life environment they want. There's a meme I mentioned to our sales team the other day. It's like, oh, I want a new job. What I mean by that, I want a job on the beach where I can live there. And I think it said drink tequila all day. And you're like, oh, you know what? That was funny 2 years ago or 3 years ago. And now you're like, you could actually do that. Like a lot of professional jobs. You could just go where the heck you want. And the tequila part, I don't know.
I was going to say, are we allowed to drink tequila during the day still?
Well, listen, it's all about results here. It's all about results. You're making things happen. Who am I? Let me backpedal. Whatever.
That's not watching.
Right. I want to get in trouble. Easy peasy. All right. So it's been 1 year. So Dre, 1 year from now.
From Friday.
Are we sending out invitations to the millions and millions of watchers of the GovCast?
Probably not.
We'll get if you need to attend. Look below. You can put questions and your email to get a invitation to Dre's wedding. So just put your email in the comments below.
And Jack Swiney will be funding your spot. No problem.
That's what I'll be doing. We'll have a special table. It'll be like GovCast audience table, at least one.
Well, actually, I think it was on the slide you showed earlier. The winners of the Gov Sales Hall of Fame also get an invite to the wedding.
Oh yeah, there'll be a whole section of the wedding. Tell your parents. Look, as you're going through the guest list, you'll be like, well, who's at this table? We don't know these people. Like, well, that's GovCast audience. These are Gov Sales Hall of Fame. Oh, it'll be like, who are all these? But they'll all bring gifts. So it'll be like quid pro quo. We'll make sure only high net worth, big time gift givers. So, all right. Congratulations. Hey, listen, I want to bring it. There it is. Add Harrison to Dre's wedding.
Harrison, send me your address.
Just email Harrison, email. So listen, I want to bring in Robert Shea as our guest today. Robert, thank you so much. He is currently the National Managing Principal of Public Policy of Grant Thornton. Robert's amazing background. We're going to talk about he's been on the Hill, on the congressional staff. He has been in the Office of Management and Budget. And obviously currently is at Grant Thornton. So Robert, thank you for coming to the show today.
Hey, nice to meet you.
Thank you so much. I'm trying to get where I am. It looks like day drinking, Muppet obsessed pet lovers. Is that
the subject? You got them all covered.
Okay, great.
You got to be a little delighted to join these calls.
I'm delighted to be here.
What variable do you add to that, though? You got to add. So if those were the three, what are you bringing to the table to add to that? What adjective we're doing with you?
Golf music composer.
That's his song. See, Kelly didn't know that. See, Kelly, I had that. I had that totally hidden. See, Kelly, now she connected the dots. She's like, why are you playing the golf? Robert, can you tell folks a little bit about your background so they know we're going to talk government today for the first time in a while?
Sure. I work in Grant Thornton's public sector consulting practice. So we provide audit and advisory services to federal, state, and local government agencies. I joined Grant Thornton after a career in government, as you mentioned, Jack, from the Office of Management and Budget, where I oversaw management of executive branch agencies. I joined OMB from the Hill. I was on the Senate Oversight Committee, and before that, the House Oversight Committee. So basically spent my career trying to oversee and improve operations of government.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'd love to like kind of take it from furthest to the nearest in your career, because I'm sure there's some good things there. So when life on the Hill, right? So for those that have never been inside the Beltway in DC, being a congressional staffer, working either for congressional member or one of the committees can be both wonderful and painstaking at the same time. And so, Robert, how about maybe one of each while being on the Hill? Is there a great story, maybe a painful story from your time being a congressional staff member?
Well, I think, the most rewarding thing is actually working on enacting laws, right? So my fingerprints are on most of the laws that impact management of the executive branch, and that goes all the way back to my time in the House of Representatives. You also spent plenty of nights on lying on a couch because a lot of those activities can go well into the night. So I unfortunately spent many a night in the office when I was up on the Hill.
Yeah, that's what the current COVID bill, right? We'll just vote all night till our
exactly right.
Democracy at work all night, right?
Yeah, trillions of dollars. It's hard to spend.
Right. How do we out? I just want a little sliver, 0.001%. How does somebody? Just one other question there, and I don't know, Steve or Andre, if you have a question about his time on the Hill, but how do you get? I know you also have your law degree. How does someone get one of those gigs? How do you get one of those staffer positions? How do you get on someone's congressional, both either staff or a committee? Any insights to folks? I think it's a big black box. People are like, you work on the Hill, you work on the Hill. Like, how does that happen? What are the connections that make that job actually happen?
So I'm a Texan, married a girl from Connecticut, and after about 3 years in Houston, she's like, "We're getting the hell out of here." So we moved.
Dre, pay attention.
This was at the time the Republicans just took control of the Congress in the 90s. I was a Republican campaign operative, I guess. That sounds sexier than what I did. But so we moved to the Washington, D.C. area and just started pounding the pavement, looking, making connections and trying to apply for whatever was available, and eventually landed a job on the House Oversight Committee, then called the House Government Reform and Oversight Committee. And it took a lot of persistence, but also you need to prove that you're a loyal party member, that you have some smarts. Once you get in the door, you need to prove yourself, make yourself indispensable, and then generally you'll succeed. Does that help?
Yes, I love. I want to deep dive, but I will just keep it PG-13 on the how do you become a loyal party member today. I assume it was different back in the 90s, but today, woo! You might.
It seemed crazy back then, and this has always been a crazy town. But I think we've gotten our share of crazy. For now. Right, a little boredom would be well served.
Images of the old biblical, like, oh, we're gonna have to do sin sacrifices here. Yeah. We're doing blood oaths here. So sorry, Steve, go.
No sacrifice. So I wanted to transition, when you went like early 2000 to the OMB, the Office of Management and Budget. Our company, we work in the procurement world, and during the 2000s, that was kind of like the blow up of technology and websites, trying to make things more efficient. And just curious, because that was really the heyday while you were there. What did, I guess, you or your team implement to try to advance where, that division was in the past, or that branch, into, the future to help you out?
So when I joined OMB, I had been spending my time in the Senate working on what seems silly right now, called the E-Government Act of 2000. So this was legislation trying to push the government to leverage the internet, basically, to improve the delivery of services to the American people. And so when I was at OMB, they were trying to architect a way to drive agency improvement in this and other areas. So we built a scorecard, and it was designed to address 5 areas: finance, procurement, technology, human capital, and performance. And we developed a set of criteria. Agencies were judged every quarter on how well they were doing. We published this scorecard, which at the time was controversial. One of the key initiatives of the technology arena was driving certain lines of business to improve together. So if you're the federal government, you're the biggest hirer of people, you're the biggest buyer of contracts,
Yep.
what have you, biggest payer of people. And so in the government, the purchase of systems to do all that stuff proliferates in an uncoordinated way. And we thought if you could buy 1, 2, maybe 3 systems to do those functions, you might be able to accelerate innovation and improve efficiency at the same time. We're still struggling with that, but
that's all I was going to ask. Did the technology help, or did it create more problems?
Well, I think the government is slow to adopt and innovate, but where we are today, both in the operation of government and delivery of services, is light years where we were from that point. And you're seeing it in response to COVID and COVID stimulus. The fact that the Small Business Administration is able to get almost $1 trillion in these Paycheck Protection Program loans. And, Dre was saying we've been at this a year. That program's only been in effect for months.
Right.
And as troubled as it is, the fact that a whole new program has stood up and delivered that amount of money is incredible. Same with individual payments, So the government, for all its warts, is just doing incredibly heroic things at this time and at any time, really.
Yeah, I think the government thinks a lot of black eyes, but it is amazing. When you think about mailing out stimulus checks, coordinating that new program, it is amazing. The infrastructure to both make that happen, disperse the money, audit it, by the way. I mean, that is crazy complicated.
That's right.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Robert.
Yes, sir.
So what was it like being in the White House with President Bush then?
So I didn't have a lot of interaction with the president, maybe met him a dozen times. One of the highlights of our year was presenting our annual scorecard to him. And he always asked very picky, annoying questions about why this, that, or the other thing didn't improve. And so the whole team would just jump on that issue and get it taken care of, because that's what you do if the president raises questions.
Yeah.
But one of the fun things that an advantage I had was my boss was the president's best friend. They went to boarding school together. They went to Yale together. They both moved to Boston to go to business school together. Cool. He was chief of staff of the president when he was governor of Texas. And so since I worked for the president's best friend, everybody thought I was I don't say that, I was a bigger deal than I actually was.
In the circle.
So, yeah. And so since we were working on stuff that generally would have been thought to be pretty boring, we actually were able to get a lot more done than we otherwise would have. That's one of the sort of unspoken rules of Washington, is that the closer you are to the president, the more juice you have to get things done. And my boss chose to invest it in management improvement, which was pretty cool. So we were able to have some successes. But being in the White House is really cool. This was right after 9/11, though. So you did feel like, I remember walking past air monitors all the time, like, I could be gassed at any time. But you're also going to Christmas parties and working on big, important things. OMB, for those of you who don't know, is really the epicenter of executive branch management. If you're a law, a regulation, a procurement policy, a speech, all of that gets funneled through OMB for the president's approval. And it's a really cool place to be if you want to impact the operations of government agencies.
Robert, was your office in the White House on a daily basis?
No. My office was in the old Eisenhower Executive Office building. So if you're in the White House, square footage is not that big a deal. The further away from the White House you get, square footage is not that important. My office was 1,100 square feet. So that shows you how unimportant I was, I think. That's an odd equation, an odd Washington equation.
Yes. Can you talk to folks? So we, when we talk about folks trying to sell to the government, right? There's the state and local world. We always encourage folks to start there. It's easier to relate to, easier to reach people, that kind of thing. But inevitably, folks, when they think about procurement or buying or the government buying stuff or that kind, they immediately think federal, and then they go on Google and they see these huge 9-figure contracts. They're like, oh, how can I get one of those? And how do I get one of these big government procurements? And a lot of folks want to run before they walk. Can you share your perspective from ONB, and then with now with Grant Thornton, which we'll talk about, is what is your advice or guidance to folks as they look at federal procurements? And if you ran into a company that says, hey, I'm looking at getting a federal contract, I'm looking at jumping into the being a federal contractor, where would you direct them, and kind of what is your perspective on that very, very big, very wide breadth of opportunity?
Yeah. So when I was at OMB, and even when I was on the Hill, I interacted a lot with vendors who sought to sell their goods and services to the federal government. And you were quickly able to distinguish somebody who knew the domain in which they were selling and those who didn't. So if you were trying to improve my profitability, for instance, that was not a good or service that I was interested in. And growth, likewise, is a phenomenon that the government really is not attuned to. These are entities that are mission focused and delivering services to a broad constituency that generally didn't have another place to go. So our customers, as they're sometimes called, are sort of captive audiences. Yes. So the language around that domain is really important. Yep. One of the things that made Grant Thornton attractive to me was its size. It wasn't one of these behemoth government consulting firms, but it wasn't so small that it didn't have a supportive infrastructure. And I learned quickly, and I'm still learning, about the processes you have to have in place to track RFPs, to understand what it takes to produce an RFP response in such a way that it complies with the monotonously arcane requirements of federal RFP.
Now remember, Robert said that. We did not. Robert Guest said those.
Cue the golf music, please.
Yeah.
The RFP.
And so the federal acquisition laws and regulations are designed to ensure that there's fair competition for contracts.
Yep.
But the ecosystem is designed to figure out a way around the limitation, the requirement for competition. What edge can we get? So relationships are just as important in government procurement as they are in the commercial side.
Amen.
So there's important ethical laws that you need to pay really close attention to. I do have really close personal friends who've done time for not quite getting those laws and regulations quite right. And so there are real penalties to be paid for getting those wrong. Yeah. And then, understanding what the people you're selling to are trying to accomplish. What is the mission of their agencies? What initiatives are most important to them? So that you can show some real empathy. And you got to do it authentically. It's not like what keeps you up at night. It's using the secret handshake to get someone to talk about what keeps them up at night. So you can structure what you're selling to address those needs. Yeah. I hope that answers your. I have an unusual perspective since I spent most of my time in government, but we try at Grant Thornton to nurture a stable of people who have government experience so they can help our people translate their conversations in a way that's more meaningful.
Listen, I love that. And for our audience, listen, we never queue up our guests. When we get guests, we don't, I have no idea what they're going to answer, but I think your feedback is kind of what we try to advise folks. So, hey, listen, you better know the terms, like know, what are the acronyms? What are the things? Say it in the right way. Profitability and all those things don't matter, right? It's having relationships, the selling to the government, like private industry. A lot of it is relationships and knowing the right people and building those relationships, right? And then, third, knowing the process. Knowing the government does have to go through a process, and understanding that and knowing each agency is different, each procurement's different. Bids and RFPs can be a certain way, sole source can be a certain way, GSA schedule can be a certain way, and knowing that allows folks that you want to buy from you to feel confident in buying from you, right? When they don't know, when you as a vendor just show up and I have a widget, please buy 1,000 of these, right? And they don't know the terms and the process. It makes it very hard for the person that's on the government side to have great faith in the company, right? That part makes it really challenging.
That's absolutely right.
That's one thing we have in GovSales University, Jack, but the only thing we are missing is the secret handshake. So Robert, after this, you gotta let us know.
Yeah.
We got a new chapter. All government officials know a secret handshake.
The blood handshake.
Yeah.
I know we're going to transfer over to Grant, because I really want to hear about that transition from public sector to private sector. But when it comes down to Fed versus SLED, is there anything, or vice versa? Can the federal learn from state, local, and education, or anything that the federal could pick up? Because now you're on both sides, right? You're dealing with as a whole. So is there anything that's more geared towards the management and budgeting, your world previously, that Fed could learn from the SLED industry, or vice versa?
Yeah, my experience in delivery on the federal side, I found a lot different. On the federal side, when you come to agreement on a contract, those deliverables are pretty set in stone.
Yeah.
And I recall a scenario on the state side when it appeared a deliverable was being completely redesigned mid-contract, and I freaked out a little bit. And they said, "Well, I'm the customer, so why are you worried about what I'm trying to deliver?" So it overnight, the light bulb went on. It appeared to me like the Wild Wild West after having been on the federal side. So I mean, just because you're working with one state means you're just working with one state. Everyone's different. But I do think it's a lot, seems a lot less strict to me. And I think the procurement is the same. That's why Jack mentioned start on the SLED side. I think that makes a lot of sense, because it's sort of like walk, jog, run. So that's one of the observation I have.
Yeah, totally agree there. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And then, Robert, can you, the last step in your professional journey now is with Grant Thornton. So can you, I know folks, I think what happens, somebody who spent time inside the Beltway as well, when you're inside the Beltway around DC, it makes so much sense. Oh, I work for the government. Now I go work for one of these contractors. And that process, when you're in the Mid-Atlantic area, seems to be like second nature. And I think the rest of the country doesn't really have great affinity toward that or understand it. So can you share your journey from O&B over to Grant Thornton and kind of what that looks like and what you're doing now?
Sure. I guess that's why they call it the swamp. So
one of the reasons.
I was always a political appointee, and at the end of the Bush administration, I knew I was going to be out of a job. All political appointees have to submit their resignations at the end of an administration.
Yep.
So I was left with a choice of pursuing, based on my experience, a lobbying career or a consulting career. I had Hill experience, so lobbying made sense insofar as I knew how to navigate the Hill, but I wasn't that comfortable just sort of being asked to advocate on a bunch of random stuff that I might not necessarily be that passionate about. Management consulting, on the other hand, was really what I had been focused on in overseeing improvement of the operations of the executive branch. So it's a more natural fit for me. Government spends, hundreds of billions of dollars annually on contracts. And so there are plenty of choices for someone who wants to pursue that route. And as I mentioned before, Grant Thornton was sort of a decent size firm, not too big, not too small. And they tend to do a better job than some in helping re-educate government employees, because I never had to sell a damn thing in my life. And having to, and I had, if you're a political appointee, you tend to be closer to the top of the food chain. And so coming in and having to kill what you eat, as they say, was a whole new experience for me.
Yeah.
So, learning the RFP process, or how to ensure that you have the latest RFPs, how to responsibly nurture your network. That's really not a secret that one of the reasons I was hired was because of my network in federal agencies. So the ability to nurture that and to continue to nurture it so that it doesn't become stale was really important. One of the mysteries, one of the surprises to me was this ignorance about agency domains and programs that is really important to be able to distinguish you from your competitors. So, if you've been working on RFP responses, you tend to think that you know how they should be done. But someone like me, who's been working with those agencies and the individuals to whom we're selling things, that's a really important spice to add to an RFP.
Yeah.
But it's sometimes hard to convince people that that's really as valuable as I think it is.
Oh,
yeah.
For someone who I am. So.
Listen, what I would just interject. Dre, I know you have a question, but for our audience, just to interject, that's the most important thing. Like all the bids and RFP, the proposals and the bids are boring and horrible, and they're too long, and no one wants to read them. And the ability to add some flavor to it, a connection, something different, your experience inside is a detail that will differentiate you. Amazing. Everybody can write the same term paper. I mean, lordy.
Yes.
Amazing. So true.
All right, I got one. Kind of switching gears, I wanted to talk about your podcast. So I was hoping maybe you could just tell us how you got into it, and then I guess some of the subjects or some of the content that you guys go over.
That's I appreciate your asking about FedHead. So I have a friend who hosts a daily television news program on the local ABC affiliate called Government Matters. His name is Francis Rove. And he and I were brainstorming some things to do. And I said, my team wants me to do a podcast. It just sounds like the worst idea. Who would possibly listen to that? But he and I decided to make a go of it. So we release a weekly podcast called FedHeads. We generally do one episode a month in which we talk about the latest developments in government management. So this week, for instance, we talked about the new director of the Office of Personnel Management and the release of the Government Accountability's high risk list, the biennial list of the big management challenges facing the federal government. I want to make sure you're all awake. Are you all listening?
Yeah,
I have a question about this, actually.
I was going to say, what are the ones on the list, right? Go finish, though. We'll come back to the list.
Yeah. So we basically a little banter episode about what's going on around town. And then the rest of the episodes, we invite a federal guest, usually a federal guest, sometimes state and local, to talk about their agency, their challenges, sometimes focusing on specific manager arenas like financial management or IT. And like y'all, we try to keep it really light. It's about 15, 17 minutes. So easily digestible. We just recorded, I think, our 100 or about to record our 150th episode. So we've kept it going a long time, but it's a good tool to improve, strengthen the Grant Thornton brand and feature some guests. I'm perennially surprised at anyone who says they've listened to it, but also most people want to appear.
Oh, that's so good. So are we.
Yeah.
That's so good.
So, Robert, I want to jump in because going out there and finding information about the government, right? So I'm sure there's all the news and media outlets, but what sites do you personally like to go to get the latest scoop on what's happening, whether it's federal or SLED, to know what's going on and keep your pulse on the industry?
Yeah. So you wouldn't want to dissect it, but I mentioned the Government Accountability Office high risk list. So every 2 years, the GAO release the major management challenges facing the federal government. So if you want a roadmap of what the government's going to focus on as far as oversight or statute, there it is. The Office of Management and Budget also annually publishes its budget. So where is all of the money appropriated to agencies going to go, or at least where does the president propose that it's going to go? Yeah. And then tracking that along the appropriations process. One of the most helpful sources of intelligence, it's kind of embarrassing to say I read these things, is the Appropriations Committee reports that accompany appropriations bills. So this is literally a laundry list of what's pissing off Congress, which is going to motivate the agencies. One of the things I'm watching most closely is each new administration publishes its president's management agenda. So what are the major initiatives it's going to deploy to improve the operations of federal agencies? And we've gotten some hints of that, but not a lot of detail. Once that emerges, you'll see this entire city's ecosystem redeploy around those initiatives. Yeah. Is it going to be diversity, equity, and inclusion? Yep. Is it going to be more shared services or digitization or robotic process automation? Or is it going to be evidence-based policymaking, a particular interest of mine, where we doing more assessment of what's working and move investment around to respond to that? So does that give you a flavor?
Yeah. That's why I was writing them down, because people are always looking for resources. So we've compiled a list. We have like a document that we help folks. The first one I was unable to get though. You mentioned OGI, but what is the particular thing that you?
The Government Accountability Office. That's US. That's GAO.gov.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you go to its homepage today, you'll find the #1 link there to the high risk list. One of the benefits of our industry is transparency. In the commercial side of the house, they are hungry for the kind of information and data we have access to. Our clients are obligated to put it all out there.
Do you still have the list, Robert? Do you have the top 2 or 3 that are on that list? Do you have
on the GAO high risk?
Yeah, on the top. Yeah, I mean, I don't. If you don't, it's fine. I was like, what are the top 2 or 3 things, or is it on the GAO? I can
let me see. It might take me some time.
No, it's okay.
I was going to check it out after the GovCast. But no,
sorry, I was kidding. It's right here. Postal Service, financial viability, the decennial census, cybersecurity, strategic human capital management, EPA's process for assessing toxic chemicals. There are about 27 items on there.
Again, are they rank ordered? Are they rank ordered or just any order? Like, is #1 the most? No.
They're in any order. They're not in rank order, and they're grouped about things that are maybe climate change related versus financial management related. Perennially, the #1 issue facing the federal government is human capital. Yeah. We have a hard time recruiting and retaining the people we need to get the people's business done.
Look, and let me connect one dot. Listen, I think if I have this right, Robert, you actually helped put together usaspending.gov. Weren't you a part of setting that up at one point?
I was.
See, there's a resource. See, look, me connecting the dots there for you.
That's beautiful. It's
It's a
beautiful.
good site. I've been on that
I
one.
think I found my spirit animals.
There it is. Did you really help set that site up? I mean, folks reference that all the time. Yeah.
I did. Trivia question: what Democratic U.S. senator sponsored the legislation that required it?
Can I phone a friend?
Barack Obama.
Oh.
So Barack Obama and Tom Coburn, Republican from Oklahoma, sponsored a bill to require every transaction in government to be posted on the internet.
Yep.
I was tasked with persuading Congress what a terrible idea it was. And when I was unsuccessful and they passed the law anyway, I got the chore of standing up the website.
Yeah. And FPDS,
So-
right? FPDS came out of that as well, right?
Well, FPDS had already existed. One of the drivers of the law was how cumbersome FPDS was at the time to navigate. And so we pulled in that data combined with grant and loan data to provide a fuller picture of what kind of financial transactions the government was entering into.
Yep.
At the time, it was rudimentary. It has improved dramatically since that time. It's an unbelievable resource for analysis of the government's financial behavior.
I saw a picture of you. I think you're famous from a couple of years ago. It looks like you won this award.
Oh, the G-Mark Award. Yeah.
Oh, yes, we did. That's for the podcast.
There you go.
Podcast won a marketing award. That was, a data point that made it harder to quit the podcast.
Right, you're like, that's the best content. You're like, we're going then.
Right.
So how many years have you guys been doing the podcast? Because that was from a couple of years ago, is that right?
It was a couple years ago. I think we're on the fourth year, the third or fourth year. I should know this.
Is Mark Amtower involved with that? Look, it looks like I think he's in that photo, right? So he's been on the show as well.
He's the sponsor of that.
Got it.
Award.
Yeah, he's great.
We met him.
Yeah, he's been on the show a couple times.
Yeah.
That's great.
Cool.
So Robert, and folks, as they try to reach out to you, can you tell folks again? I know we hit on a little bit, like what you're doing today there at Grant Thornton, and like how folks could reach out to you. What's the best way to connect? And
so my email is on my LinkedIn page, but you can probably access me at grantthornton.com. I am hopefully easy to access. I continue to serve clients at the federal, state, and local levels, which is really an incredibly enriching part of my job. But I've taken on public policy for the firm, so I'm now the chief lobbyist, I guess, for Grant Thornton. And one of the things that I think the government could do a lot better job of is getting communication between executive branch agency officials and folks on Capitol Hill to have ongoing conversations, because right now they don't talk.
Yeah.
And Congress is working on legislation that agencies are going to have to implement. I think improving that relationship is something that could really improve not only the relations, but the way government operates, because those requirements will make a lot more sense if that communication, the line of communication, is more open.
Yeah, when I used to live on the Hill, I mean, I used to say, I used to think of government like the WWE, right? It's like they would be on camera saying horrible things. And then when you're around town, they'd all be out to dinner, they'd be whatever, left and right. They'd be, they'd all be, you'd see them at dinner. You'd be like, what, they hate each other? You'd be like, no, that's just when the camera's on, right? But now.
100% right. My wife now sees me on all these Zoom calls. She's like, I can't believe you were talking to that guy. I'm like, no, he's not like that when he's not on Fox News, honey.
Right, you have to when the camera's on, right? Like you started the show, look, you have to prove your loyalty. You have to get your badge. You have to keep your badge on, man, in public when the camera's on.
That's great.
Yeah, there's a lot of bipartisanship collaboration, but we can't talk about it.
Yeah, you can't. Don't let the world know about the media wants us to be adversarial. Any last words, Robert? Any last words for audience? Anything you feel like we missed? Things you'd want
Well,
to know?
thanks for doing this. It sounds like y'all are really driving home the ability to improve, the way people serve in government or selling and delivering to the government. So I really appreciate what you're doing.
I love when we have folks like you on, again, for our audience, not set up in any way, and like kind of echo some of the things we try to encourage folks to pursue as they try to win some government business. And you hear like Robert's been in the White House and OMB, like as close as it gets, living it. And I think in Alexandria, Virginia now, so around the Beltway, making those things happen. So encourage you, especially if you're involved in the federal world, to reach out to him, and he can tell you what happens behind the scenes every single day. So Robert, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate you.
I'm grateful for you having me. Thanks a lot.
Stay safe.
Bye.
Take care. You too.
That's awesome. Listen, it's so true. Like when they say that, you're like, well, yep, that's exactly what happens.
Yeah, a lot of it. And I like how at the end he was tying in their transparency, right? Like sharing thing. And that's really the core of our business model. Dre works with GovSpend, just trying to help people know what's going on. And should remember that answer. Obama was the Democratic senator that helped pass that. But
it's interesting too. Is somebody who lived in D.C. for a time before 9/11. It's so like back in the day, you could like go tour, inside the White House and blah blah blah. You can't do any of that anymore. But I just imagine like going to the White House. Like that, if that was part of your like regular ritual, you'd be like, yeah, we're going over the White House today. You know what I mean? That would just be so cool. But
I'd like to visit. I've still never been.
The White House?
All right.
DC.
Oh my gosh, you got to get to.
My cousin lives there though, so I'd like to go visit her.
Yeah, that's like there's many cycles in DC. If there's a couple of days just doing the mall and all the money. It's amazing. It's very.
Can I have some time off?
What's that?
Can I have some time off?
Yeah. What do you need? It's like tomorrow, like next Wednesday. Speaking of
Saturday, Sunday, you get off. Saturday, Sunday.
Steve, what's happening next Wednesday?
Wednesday, there's two things happening next Wednesday.
Is Dre hold on. Will Dre be there? That's the question.
Am I invited?
You're invited.
We need a DJ.
But I want to have a better role than that.
Yeah.
All right, we'll get you a better role. So next Wednesday, two things I was gonna say. One is St. Patrick's Day. Oh, I love these characters here. So cute.
Good looking guy.
The second thing is our webinar. So if you tune in every Wednesday, like religiously, like I know you're here tuned in live, but we're going to be live doing a GovCast. So it's going to be not a GovCast, a webinar, same time, 12 noon Eastern time. And these are the secret tips and tricks. This is the stuff that happens behind the scenes that no one ever talks about.
Yeah.
Like, they were just mentioning like, oh yeah, on camera, it looks this way, but like what happens behind the scenes? So we're just doing this as a one-time thing. We're not going to keep harping it because these secrets, we really keep coveted because you don't want to get them out. But to our audience, as a thank you, it's one of the chapters in GovSales University. We're going to go those little tips and tricks that happen to help you actually win business. Because everyone says, oh, you do this, you do that, register for SAM, then you respond to a bid, and then you get the bid. But it's like, what is the work that goes in behind the scenes? So I don't want to give away the secrets now. So you're going to have to tune in next Wednesday, again, 12 o'clock Eastern time. To register, very easy. Just go to govsalesuniversity.com/webinar, and it'll be a typical Zoom form where you can join us live. And we're going to be there for Q&A too. So it's going to be devil in the details, and you can ask us any questions you want as well. So looking forward to it.
Dre, this is your wheelhouse. These are all.
Oh, I can't. I have no leprechaun. It looks like I'm not invited.
I got to get something. Keep it going.
Oh, you're going to get your dog?
Yeah.
Oh, look, there's cookies and cream. Oh. Look, so many of these so many of these come from Dre and her team of us both working with government agencies and us working with clients selling to the government. It will be the best of the best. I think Steve soft played it, but literally it is behind the scenes. The analogy I would use for people, it's like, like we all know in the law enforcement world. Oh, go ahead.
Keep going, Jack.
We're about to get trumped. Let's see.
Right. In the law enforcement world, like at the end of the month, they're trying to get rid of their tickets, and there's things you could do and things you can't do. Same thing. Look, there's things that happen in the government procurement space that really folks don't talk about, like one of user lose funds and those kind of things. And so we're going to hit on 20 to 30 different small tips and tricks that can make a huge, huge impact on you winning government business. So it will be a one-time only. As Stephen mentioned, we will not do it again. So if you're ever going to attend anything we ever do, that'll be the best hour you spend during the year, because we will talk about all the things that no one ever wants to talk about. Try not to get fired. Why doesn't Dre have one? Go ahead, Steve. Go ahead, take it away, Steve.
And the great thing about this webinar is it's free. free advice. So you better be there. If I don't see you there, I'm gonna be upset. And so is Evie, the newest member to our family.
Oh!
So say hi.
Hi, cute.
So just lucky to have her. All right, that's all. Just want to
We're
show her
out.
on screen.
See you next week for the webinar. Sign up. Make sure you get there. Thank you.
See
We're
ya.
out. Roberts, we're going.